Hi everyone, it's Christelle from Permacrafters. I've been doing a lot of backyard foraging this spring in my garden, and I wanted to introduce you to red clover. Although this might not be an introduction, maybe it's a plant that you're already familiar with. So we're going to be defining the characteristics of this plant, its health benefits, and how to make a red clover tabbouleh. So the Latin name for red clover is Trifolium pratense. It's very common here in Europe. I grew up enjoying the nectar of these plants way back in elementary school. So you can also find this plant actually in Western Asia and northwestern Africa, where it's native. And if you're tuning in from elsewhere, you may still find this plant near you if it's been planted there. So as you'll see, there's a cluster of these plants in my garden here. You'll find them in clusters like this. They actually live for several years, so it's a short-lived perennial, and they're in a sunny to mid-shade spot here in my gardens. So right now it's April, so the flowers are just starting to come up, but really it's the season to focus on consuming the leaves. So you'll have all summer to enjoy the flowers. Now is the time to consume the leaves. So before getting into our recipe making, I'm going to go over some plant ID first. Do not consider this your full guide to foraging red clover. You should always be 100% sure of your plant ID, but it's up to you to double check the plant ID information I'm sharing, especially because lookalikes will differ depending on where you live in the world. Okay, let's have a look at our red clover. So now if the flowers are already in bloom, it's very easy to notice them, but if they aren't yet, the first thing that I notice is the leaves. The leaves have 3 leaflets, hence the Latin name Trifolium. So they have a V shape on them. So I guess it's kind of like an upside down V. So that's the first thing I see. So of course, if you're lucky, you'll find a 4-leaf clover, but that's a whole other story. And for plant ID purposes, stick to the 3 leaflets. So these leaflets are about 15 to 30 millimeters long, and it's important to look for that V shape to not confuse the plant with like the strawberry clover, for example. Same thing with alfalfa that does not have a V shape and whose flowers are purple. So back to red clover. If you flip the leaflets over, you'll see that they're lighter green on the underside, whereas they're darker green on the top side, and they're a bit furry. So you'll notice the leaves are actually alternate on the stem. The stem is round and it branches out. And something really interesting about this plant, or to me at least, are its stipules. They can have either purple or green veins, and they're shaped like a lance head. They're lanceolate. They abruptly narrow to a bristle-like point, and this part actually detaches. Okay, let's talk about the flowers now. And honestly, if this is your first time foraging them, I'd say wait until the red clovers are in bloom so that you can really ID them properly. So this right here isn't a flower, but actually a whole cluster of flowers in a dense globular inflorescence at the very tip. And the flowers are pink, a darker pink that gets paler as you get closer to the base. And they're quite small. They're just 12 to 15 millimeters long. It's important to remember that there are stipules at the base of the inflorescence. Some lookalikes like the strawberry clover do not have this. Okay, let's get even closer now. So carefully take a red clover flower. You'll notice that there is actually a calyx, which is a collection of sepals that are stuck to the base of the flower. So you'll notice the calyx has 5 tooth-shaped structures, and there's 5 petals. A larger one and then 2 others on the side, and 2 that are sort of stuck together. And that's it. And the plant as a whole can get up to 40 centimeters, but for now these guys are little. Of course, before foraging, always learn about lookalikes. This will change depending on where you live. In my case in Switzerland, lookalikes include white clover, the strawberry clover, alfalfa as well, and heart clover. These guys actually have dark stains on the leaflets, and just Oxalis genus in general, it has heart-shaped leaves. So these plants, the leaves and the flowers, are actually packed with minerals and proteins and contain phytoestrogen as well. When it comes to medicinal uses, there hasn't been much research on this plant, but what I can share is that traditionally it has many uses, from sedative to anti-inflammatory to antispasmodic to treatment for menopause symptoms like hot flashes, to lymphatic system disorders, and so on. So don't consume ungodly amounts of this plant, and don't let babies or toddlers, actually she's older than 3 now, don't let them consume it if they're babies or toddlers, because it's phytoestrogen content. If you have endometriosis, ovarian cancer, breast cancer, uterine fibroids, hyperthyroidism, or conditions that are sensitive to estrogen, don't consume it. Also, if pregnant or breastfeeding, don't consume it either, or if you have coagulation disorders or are undergoing anticoagulation therapy. And I wouldn't recommend consuming it if you are currently taking any medication either. So now for our recipe. Since the days are getting warmer, I thought it would be nice to try a wild couscous tabbouleh recipe.